There was a part of me that felt like I'm really lucky to be doing this. This is not even a real job. Like that's what in the depths of my, mind was telling me. Maybe that's coming from an Asian family. For all the transitions that I've had in my career, in my life, I've always just went with my gut. It was like this combination of needing, that kind of artists need to put something authentic and real out into the world. I'm very much an introvert. That's my natural way of being. And when I was kind of at the height of doing television, I was like a really good soldier. I showed up on set and I did my thing and I did it well.
Welcome to Before We Get There, a podcast where we explore people's journeys, how they got to where they are, what keeps them pushing forward, and where they eventually want to get to. I'm your host, Nicholas Braman, and today I'm joined by Debbie Wong. Debbie is a TV host and entrepreneur with stints on Food Network Asia and her own YouTube channel. We talk about what it means to build something before you believe you deserve it, how ideas of home change as you change, the quiet fear of messing things up once something finally starts to work, and much more. If you've ever questioned whether what you're doing is real enough, wondered when confidence is supposed to arrive, or felt caught between where you came from and who you're becoming, there's a lot here for you. Enjoy the show. Hi, Debbie. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you.
It's great to have you on the podcast and so nice to be here in Hong Kong.
Welcome.
Thank you. So what I actually wanted to start off with was the topic of food, because that's one of the things you're known for. And I just had an amazing pineapple bun this morning for breakfast. So I'm curious, food's been part of your life for such a long time. Mm-hmm. Was it that way since the time you were a kid, or was there like a certain experience or moment where you really fell in love with food?
It's been part of my life for as long as I can remember. It's something that I've always loved, always fascinated by since I was a kid. My parents, I'm an immigrant kid. I know you're an immigrant kid as well. I was born in Hong Kong, grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and was there since I was a year old. So I don't remember Hong Kong very much at all. So grew up in Vancouver, exposed to all kinds of cuisine. And my parents were very good with introducing us to all kinds of food. So when I think about the food of my childhood, it really was like everything from Cantonese food to Italian to pizza to pho to Indian curry. So I grew up eating kind of everything. I started to cook for myself very young. I just was drawn to the kitchen. And it was a passion of mine early on. It was kind of a secret passion because I grew up in a time when there wasn't like things like Food Network on TV or like, food wasn't the kind of cultural phenomenon that it is today. And so I loved it, but it wasn't something that I shared so much with people. It was just something I did and loved to do and watch on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you started your YouTube channel, Walking Gong, mm-hmm. right? And that was, I would say, pretty early on in the food influencer YouTube type of days. What was the motivation behind that? How did you start?
At that time, when I started my YouTube channel, it was probably 2011, 12. So yeah, very early on it wasn't, I don't even know if the word influencer existed back then. And it wasn't even the reason why I started doing it. So at the time I was living in Montreal, and I had moved there I was newly married and I'd moved there for, my husband got a great job there. And I was trying to find my way, and I had graduated school by that time, and I went to performing arts school. And I had also had a culinary background, so I was a catering chef for a while and a private chef for a bit. And so I had always wanted to combine those passions of performing arts and food. And I just, YouTube had come on the scene, and I just thought, I could do it myself. And as I said, it was a time in my life where I was trying to find my way and like trying to figure out what to do with these passions of mine. And I taught myself how to edit. I taught myself how to, make videos.
Wow.
And I started that YouTube channel. And to this day, it doesn't have a lot of followers, but it gave me that body of work, and it gave me those new skills. Yeah.
And so then going back to the performing arts side of things, how about that? Was that something that you were always drawn to as a kid? I mean, you chose it to study that in university.
One of my earliest memories was my parents would tell me to stop staring at people, because when I was little, I would just be fascinated with just people, the way they moved and the way they talked, and just curious about their lives. And so that's one of my early core memories of just like, sitting in a restaurant or sitting in a park with my parents, and I'd just be like, staring at the person next to me, they'd be like, Deb, stop staring, but I just loved watching people. And so maybe it came from that was the earliest, that's like the seed, I think, just being curious about people.
That's interesting. I that resonates with me. I've always been somebody who likes to observe people, but I don't have the extroverted performance side of motivation or what I like to do. So,
right. Well, you know what? I'm an introvert as well, and I think that the performing arts gave me a space to be extroverted, and to communicate, because as an introverted creative person, it's for me, I can't speak for all introverted creative people, but for me, I, like anybody, crave to communicate. And doing, I've done all kinds of things in the realm of performing arts, plays, films, TV hosting. And in all those things gave me opportunity to communicate. It gave me an opportunity to, I don't like to say express myself, because that seems kind of, self-indulgent, but like it really was my way to communicate and to show my point of view and to share.
Right.
Yeah.
And so during those early days when you first got into it as an introvert, was it scary? Was it challenging to put yourself out there or to be in front of an audience?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, I think there's nerves like anybody else, but for me, it was freedom. It was my space to do that, because I wasn't very outgoing in school. I didn't make friends very easily. I was very shy, and I was very, very shy person in real life. And so I think performing arts was it really saved me. Yeah. And
so then you were in, like you mentioned, you were in some films and TV. Was that during your time in New York and Montreal?
Yeah, we're jumping around in time, but yes. Yes. So I went to performing arts school in New York, and it was for musical theater. And when I graduated, I stayed in the city for as long as I could. I'm not American, and so there was visa things and whatnot. But for the short time that I stayed there, I did off-Broadway productions, so theater. And then I had to move back to Canada, but luckily I was able to get jobs kind of across the border and back in Canada as well. And that's when I moved into film and TV. And I always say I did small roles in big films and big roles in small films, and was able to be a working actor. I was able to get consistent work. And then it was also around the time that I started my YouTube channel, because when I became a working actor, I was grateful for the work. I was grateful for the job. It became a job, but it also wasn't fully what I wanted it to be, in that I didn't have a lot of control over the work. It was, unless it's your script and your story and you're the director, you're very much in someone else's production. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't realize this until later on in my career, but like, it was very important to me the whole reason why I do it is to communicate, as I said, to tell stories, to share myself. Right. And so when you're in someone else's project and when you're saying lines that someone else wrote, you don't quite have that experience, right? And so I think that was one of the motivations to start my YouTube channel, because I wanted something that was mine. Yeah.
And so obviously the passion for food as well as performance brought you to the YouTube channel. But did you, when you mentioned, putting everything together and being kind of on the director side, or being able to create your own story, did you explore other, directing films or short, plays or anything like that? Or was the YouTube channel kind of enough to give you that outlet that you were looking for?
It was enough to give me that outlet. At that time, when I started the YouTube channel, I wasn't thinking about directing films or TV at all. I was very much focused on being in front of the camera and like doing the thing that I loved the most, and I still love the most. And so, yeah, starting the YouTube channel was my way of making something that was mine, that was my voice, that combined my passion for food, or that incorporated my passion for food. Yeah, and to this day, I think it's still, it's not active anymore, but I think it's still the thing that I feel when I watch back on it, that I feel the most myself. Like, I'm like, oh, that's me when I watch it. Yeah.
So then maybe jumping ahead a little bit, you eventually moved back here to Hong Kong. And we'll get into the next stage with the hosting, but I was just curious about what brought about that move and what was it like being someone born in Hong Kong, but not having lived here very long. How did it feel coming back?
Yeah. I came back to Hong Kong because I was always curious about what it would be like to live here. I was born here. I spent the first year of my life here. And my dad never wanted to come back even for visits, right? So I didn't grow up with Hong Kong in my life, except through my parents' stories and through media and things. And I always kind of saw it as a place that I could go back to. And because I always had my permanent residency, it was always kind of like in the back of my mind. And I think maybe what motivated was I had met my husband, and he at that time was a Chinese history professor. He was studying Chinese history and kind of introduced me to China, to Chineseness in a way that I didn't, wasn't in my life growing up so much. And I actually went to China for the first time before I even visited Hong Kong for the first time. I went to China in 2006, my early 20s. And it just kind of sparked something. I was like, wow, this is a place that I could see myself living here. I could see the excitement and the opportunities for young people. And I think that's what kind of planted the seed. And then, ended up moving back here. And to answer your question about like culture shock, there wasn't any. I just kind of slipped right in. My parents are Cantonese, and I grew up speaking Cantonese, albeit not very fluently. Now I'm fluent because I've been here for 10 years, but when I came back, I wasn't. But there was something in the air that felt familiar to me. And also Hong Kong is so international. I feel like I can't speak for everyone in the world, but everyone I've met who's visited here has said something similar, and that is that you can find a piece of yourself here, no matter where you're from. And I believe that. And I felt that.
I was very interested when I was doing the research, because from your YouTube show, it seemed like it led up perfectly to this moment where you entered the food host competition and were one of the winners. Was that completely unexpected, or did it feel right? Did it feel natural?
You mean when I found out that I'd won the competition? It felt, it felt like a relief, because I had been working so hard to make something of my education and my dreams and my passions. And I don't know what it looks like from the outside, but there was never like a calculated plan, for all the transitions that I've had in my career, in my life. I've always just went with my gut. It was like this combination of needing, that kind of artists need to put something authentic and real out into the world, but also a need to keep going and to prove to myself that I can make a career out of this thing. So I was, there is planning and involved, but it's mostly like, okay, this feels right. Let's go for it. So the competition you're referring to was the Food Hero competition. I don't really look at it as a competition, because it wasn't ever anything that was televised or public. It was actually a casting call.
Okay.
It was this Asia-wide casting call done by Food Network Asia, and they were looking for new faces for the channel. This is like 10 years ago now, and I didn't even know that. I grew up watching Food Network in Canada, right? Food Network, the US channel, and I didn't know that they had an Asia faction. It was like Food Network Asia, so it was a pretty big deal. But I'm moving here. I didn't know that they were even in Asia, or that they had television programming for Asia. But it was someone in the food community that I met. And she was like, you should, because she knew I did YouTube and I had this YouTube show, and she was like, you should audition for Food Network. And I'm like, I'd love to do that, but I'm in Asia. They're like, no, they're looking for new hosts. And so she sent me this link, and then, I read all, what they wanted in terms of requirements, and like, send us a video, this and that. And then I sent them a video that was kind of outside of the box from what they were asking for. And, and then I got a call back, and then it was like several months of like callbacks and Zoom calls. And, but yeah, eventually, I got the job. So that's how it happened. And then when I got the job, to answer your question, it was a relief. It was like, finally, it was like, because, I think to the world, it was like, where'd this girl come from all of a sudden? But for me, I had been working since I graduated, been like working really hard for something like that to happen. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so you talked about that sense of relief once you got the job. I think most of us are familiar, maybe not quite along that timeline of a career and things, but certainly during a job search, when you finally get an offer letter or accept an offer letter, and you're like, okay, now I can get ready and to do the job and to do my best in this next stage of my career. But then you actually start doing it, and you often find that things are not a little bit different than what you were expecting. And I think, hosting on a YouTube channel and acting, it's, like I said, it kind of leads up and is similar, but I guess being on site, traveling around, having a crew around you and all that sort of thing could be quite challenging, or it could be a lot different than maybe most people would imagine. What were were there any challenges that you didn't expect?
Any challenges that I didn't expect? I think the challenges were, there was, I think of one particular show that it was the first long series that I did with Food Network. It was called Food Wars. And that was a show that involved a lot of moving parts. It was a large crew. It was a lot of locations. It was a lot of kind of outdoor locations. So I learned about, the one takeaway I learned from that was just how much goes into production. Just how many people are involved in, I was the one host on that show, right? It was me, and then each episode had different sort of co-hosts and, restaurants they were featuring. And so all these moving parts of, booking the restaurants to speaking to the owners, making sure all the dishes are cooked to our timing. There was a whole judging section of the show. So there was like a live audience, and then celebrity judges, and multiple cameras, and like just, it was a very tiring show to film. I'm sure I was the least I was exhausted, but I'm sure the whole crew was even more exhausted because they work even harder. It gave me a real appreciation for all the things that go into making a show, and I think there's less and less of this now, where it's like a full-on season of like half-hour programming, right? But that's what that was like, full-on half-hour episodes, a whole, like a season of a show. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so during that time, you've made it, you worked, you studied performing arts, you've been doing the YouTube channel, now you're on TV. Do you start thinking about where this is going, or what's the next step, or are you just in the moment trying to do the best you can and see what happens?
I'm in the moment doing the best I can, and seizing the moment. I to be honest, yeah, when that was all happening, I was just riding that wave, like just doing the best I could. I think looking back, like what I wish I could have done was step into my power a little bit more in real life. You know, like I told you, I'm very much an introvert. That's my natural way of being. And when I was kind of at the height of doing television, I was like a really good soldier. I showed up on set and I did my thing and I did it well. I know I'm good at what I do, but I, in the way that I just want to do the best job as a team member of this massive production. And when I was off camera, I was just like my shy, normal self. And, that was like 10 years ago now, right? So I'm very much a different person. I think it's at my core, I'm still an introvert, but I have matured and become way more confident in my own skin. And I'm able to now walk into rooms and I call it stepping into my power. I'm able to acclaim my authority now in a way that when I was younger and first starting out, I didn't do. And I think that back then, if I had that confidence in my own skin, I would be able to say, network and introduce myself to people and maybe further my career even more. But I didn't have that sort of off-stage presence as I did on stage. And now I think I have both, which, that comes only from maturity, I guess, and experience. Yeah.
How did you come to this realization that you could or should be more stronger or more, you could be more than just a good soldier and falling in line and doing what people are asking and doing your job and doing it well, but you could have gone beyond that. So was it something that you were intentionally working on in recent years, or is it just in hindsight and mature, being more mature that you're looking back and realize that you could have done more there?
I think it was a lot of self-work that had to be done that really had nothing to do with my work. It was a lot of, self-limiting beliefs. You hear a lot of that out there, that term out there, but it's real. A lot of self-limiting beliefs about what I was doing. I think maybe an unconscious reason I wasn't like fully stepping into my power before and like, going out there and being the shining offstage person as I was on stage was because I didn't fully, there was a part of me that felt like I'm really lucky to be doing this. This is not even a real job. Like that's what in the depths of my, mind was telling me. Maybe that's coming from an Asian family. Maybe that's coming from, I don't know what, but like as much as I've pursued, only a creative career my whole life, there was a part of me up until recently that felt like, not that I don't deserve it, but like, I'm really lucky to be doing this. And like, I don't like, wow, I better, keep doing it as long as it lasts, versus like, wait a second, this is a real job. This is a real vocation. I worked freaking hard to get here and I'm going to keep nurturing it. Like I wasn't thinking that way. I think it was just like actually not fully believing in myself. Yeah.
So it was almost like, don't mess things up. Don't step out
keep doing a good job. Yeah. Keep doing a good job versus like, I am doing great and I can, it's not until you fully believe in yourself that you are able to like plan for the next steps, I think, or to think about, where can this take me? I don't, it's a very recent thing that I think that I fully believe in myself. It's only been recent. Yeah.
And so a few years ago, you started a business and you are in the fashion consultancy. Is that the right way to put it?
Yeah. It's a little bit under, yeah. Yes, it is. It's called Dressing the Woman, and it's a personal style consultancy. And I started with my dear friend and now business partner. And it is what we do is we help people find their personal style. And, style, personal style, fashion has been another thing that I have always been passionate about, but in the way that it helps you walk through the world as your best self. And I've always loved personal style. I've always loved seeing people kind of like dress in the way that, when you see someone on the street and you're attracted to them because of the way they present themselves, and you can't quite pinpoint, I can pinpoint what it is, but like a normal person may not be able to pinpoint what it is, but they're just in harmony. What they're wearing is in harmony with who they are. And, I've always loved that and that concept. And so that's what Dressing the Woman is based on. And we do one-on-one styling for people, for private clients, but we also do workshops and group workshops on helping you, we say, unlock your personal style. Mm-hmm.
And so do you think that this process of becoming a business owner, working for yourself, being an entrepreneur, was that part of what built that confidence and self-belief? Yeah,
I think I started Dressing the Woman over COVID. And like anyone, those years were, a time for self-reflection, and a lot of, ups and downs happened to people. And certainly for me, I won't go into every detail, but I experienced a loss during COVID, and it really shook my world. And I really look at my life now as sort of a before and after of that sort of line in the sand. Dressing the Woman came out of that, was a beautiful thing that came out of that moment. And I think that's part of the reason why my business, or Dressing the Woman, is so dear to me, because it came from such an authentic and raw place. And my goal with it is really that it doesn't ever lose its purpose, that it doesn't become something it's not. And
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's so the start during COVID, that's not an easy time to start a business. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're going, through some personal challenges as well. What were those early days of starting the company like? It happened very organically. So it was, my business partner started an Instagram page. She was going through her own stuff, and she actually comes from a very different world. She is a corporate boss. So she was working for a bank, quite high up, and but has a creative soul, and she just wanted to just do something that was an outlet. She started an Instagram page called Dressing the Woman, where she just showed her daily outfits. It was very simple, and she just loved doing it. And then one day we were just talking, and we were doing. We tell this story with like fondness. There's this one place we go to in Hong Kong where we get burgers and martinis, and so it was one of those nights we were having burgers and martinis and chit chatting, and then we're talking about style. We're talking about personal style, and we're talking about our passion for it, and we just thought, why don't we do Dressing the Woman together? And that's when it became that's when it became a business. It went from an Instagram page that was just kind of a passion thing for her to something that, we want to make this something where we can help people and empower people. Yeah. And so we've been talking a lot about your creative spark and doing things that fulfill you creatively. Running a business is a lot different, I think, and there's sometimes what you would like to do creatively or what's calling to you creatively isn't what the business is able to sustain. Have you had to make any pivots or adjust what you're trying to do, or how you talk to your audience, or even what audience your customers are to make things sustainable?
I think my business partner is a better person to answer that question, because she's very much the business development and I'm very much the artistic director. But I will say, we're still growing. But it's very important to both of us to stay true to the purpose. I think for us, we're not doing this for sort of short-term gain and it's not either of our styles to sort of calculate anything. It really does come from, what feels right for the real reason why we started this. And we fully believe that the right people will come to you and the right customers will come to us if they get it. And so, or if that, we're not really trying to appeal to anyone and everyone. If you go on our website and you see our packages, they're quite involved and they're not super affordable, but it's because we spend a lot of time with our clients and a lot of it is about education and a lot of it ends up being kind of like therapy, because the women and men who come to us, don't just want a makeover. They want to, reflect who they are on the outside as they are on the inside. And it's very much a total transformation and not just on the outside. So, and we're passionate about that.
That's awesome. I'm curious about your thoughts on identity as you've evolved over the year, because you've had such an interesting and diverse career. And so when you do something like going from being in films and TV to having your own YouTube channel to being a TV host to being a business owner, first of all, there's what do you tell people when you introduce yourself in small talk, right?
That is the hardest question to answer. It really is. I don't like it. I don't like having to recite my CV every time I introduce. You know what I mean? It sucks.
So then going beyond that though, reflecting and thinking about yourself, how do you think about the different stages of your life and career, and how do you a lot of people identify as one thing very strongly. I'm an actress or actor. I'm a creator. I'm a business owner. How do you feel about that?
I don't identify with those with a job title, to be honest. And that's been one of the things that frustrates me about about most of the world, because that's how people identify, or maybe that's not how people identify. It's how people introduce themselves. Right. And it's the most common question you ask, or people ask other people is what do you do? Right. That's always made me disconnect, because I've always been a creative person where it's been not a one-word answer as to what I do. And as you said, I've been through so many stages of my career where, actress, host, chef, now business owner. I've honestly just identified as myself. The one constant is me channeling me through all of those jobs. And yeah, my wish is that more people could do that so that I have some company. But that's honest to goodness how I've identified myself. In life, when someone's asking me what do you do? I'll say whatever is most appropriate in that situation, I guess. If I'm at a fashion event, I'll say I'm a business owner, I own Dressing the Woman. If I'm at a food event, I'll say, I've come from food media or something like that. Yeah.
Have you thought about what way you wish you could introduce yourself, or people introduce themselves to each other?
I wish people would just stop asking what you do. I don't think that's the most important part of your life, really. I think that's what I would change. I really have just identified as myself, just myself. I don't really. Yeah, I I've never really identified myself through my jobs ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that sense of self, do you think it comes from your background or from your passions, from your, what kind of angles come to mind when you think about that?
Where does that sense of self come from? I think it's my dad. He's someone who has a very strong sense of self. And I think it's just one of the things that was gifted to me or something. Yeah. I think it's what's kept me strong and not kind of going off the rails, and, in times of challenging times, like it's been one of the greatest gifts, I think, that's been given to me. Yeah.
I'm curious to know more, as a father of a young daughter, was it through example, or were there lessons in teaching?
Mostly through example. I think mostly through example. Teaching in a way that didn't feel like teaching. If I look back, it's, he'd always say, when you're little, when I was little, I'd be experimenting with different looks, like crazy fashion choices or hairstyles. And he'd just be like, Deb, just be natural. And in his way, he has a very calm, cool way about him. And he'd be like, just be natural, Deb, just be natural. And I just remember that,
That's really cool. Are you a recipe person, or do you cook from your head?
I cook from my head. I do look at recipes for inspiration. So maybe I'm cooking something from a foreign, a cuisine I'm not too familiar with. So I might look up a recipe and go, okay, those spices, that spice combination, I get it, that process. Okay, I can do it, And so I look it up for sort of flavor profiles. One time recently, I was like, I wanted to know if saffron went with coriander, because coriander, the spice, not the herb, because I just had both of them and I wanted to use them, but I wasn't sure if they went together. So those are the kinds of things I look at. Does saffron go with coriander? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I always thought it was interesting. I'm not sure if you found the same growing up in Vancouver. You mentioned exposure to a lot of different cuisines, but at least when I was growing up in Seattle, we had a lot of Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, but some of the Southeast Asian cuisine I wasn't exposed to as much. And since I've moved to Singapore, it's become my absolute favorite: Indonesian, Malaysian, Filipino food. Before you were hosting the TV shows and you went around to all those places and got to have amazing food, did you have a lot of exposure to those cuisines?
I did not. And I remember very distinctly, actually, the day after I got the job, I was like, I got to learn about Southeast Asian food. And they're like, yeah, you do. But yeah, that's probably the best thing that came out of, one of the best things that came out of my time with Food Network, was just traveling to all the Southeast Asian countries and having the best food. And yeah, to this day, same with you, it's one of my favorite cuisines. I couldn't say it's there's so many cuisines within that region, but like Malaysian food, Singaporean food, Indonesian food, Thai. Those cuisines combine my favorite kinds of flavors, which are spice, sour, just intensity of flavor. Like I love all of those kinds of flavors. So yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
One final question before we go. I always like to ask my guests about the future and where they're going. So if I talk to you again in 5 years, what would you like to be able to tell me has happened since then that you would feel good about?
I would like to have said that it's a good question, because I feel like it's a moment, it's an opportunity to manifest, right? I would like to return to being in front of the camera, because I stepped away for a while, and I've realized in this past year, it really is my first love and my favorite way to show up in the world. And so I would like to be back on camera again. And I would like my business to be thriving. I'd like Dressing the Woman to have reached a good amount of people and yeah, really changing people and changing the way people think about dressing.
Awesome. Those are great goals. How about on the personal side? We talked before about stepping into your power and how you thought you could have done that more in your past. Anything you're working on currently?
I think it's anything specific I'm working on. In terms of like becoming more in my own skin, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or as far as like for myself, I think every day I'm working on being a better father and a better husband. So that's definitely one thing. If I talk to you again in 5 years, I'd like to be able to say that these past 5 years, I've made progress in that area.
I think I want to show up more for, I think, I don't know if this is part of being an introvert, but, I think in the past, I've been more guarded. And I want to continue. I've been working on it and I've been getting better. Continue to be more of an open book. And offer myself and my story to people, because what you give out is what you get back. And, to give more. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's vulnerability and sharing that you're maybe not perfect like you would in front of the camera?
Yeah, definitely. You're good. Yes. To be okay with showing your bad side, your vulnerable side, your weaknesses. I was not okay with that in the past. And I think in the last, I would say since the COVID years, I've been slowly, just peeling away and becoming way more comfortable with just showing my full self. And I want to keep doing that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that you can be very successful doing that as well. Before we go, where can people find you if they want to work with you for your clothes? Where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah. My own page is Ms. Debbie Wong, Ms.Debbie Wong. And Dressing the Woman is @DressingTheWoman on Instagram.
Awesome. We'll put the links in the show notes. But thanks so much for joining me. It was great to talk to you today.
Great to talk to you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Before We Get There with your host, Nicholas Braman. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Before We Get There Podcast. New episodes are released every other Thursday morning. See you next time.